This story is titled, My Mom Helping My Wife Cover Up Her Affair. Wife Got Pregnant. My Shocking Revenge. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, please like this video and subscribe Positive Voices. Let's begin. Sundays were usually my sanctuary, a day to unwind and let life breathe. That particular Sunday, though, would become anything but peaceful. I decided on a whim to drop by my parents' house. No calls, no texts, just a spontaneous visit to share a cup of coffee and talk about the holidays. As I pulled into the driveway, a car I knew too well caught my eye. Claire's. My wife's car sat there, and immediately a flicker of curiosity took hold. Claire hadn't mentioned she'd be here. Perhaps she was planning something sweet, like surprising me with a coordinated holiday dinner with my mom. It would have been just like her. With a faint smile, I stepped out of the car, the sound of gravel crunching under my shoes grounding me in the calm of the moment. But the calm didn't last. The door to my parents' house was slightly ajar, and from inside, I heard voices. My mother's voice came first, soft and familiar, yet carrying an undertone that made me pause. "So, how is it?" she asked. Another voice followed, one I recognized instantly, Claire's. "Better than expected," she said, a light chuckle trailing her words. Though, I probably should have been more careful. The weight in her tone stopped me cold. My pulse quickened as unease spread through me like wildfire. I stood frozen on the porch, my hand hovering over the doorknob. My mother's response came next, her words sharp, yet oddly maternal. "Well, Claire, next time be more discreet," she said, her tone tinged with exasperation. "You can't keep slipping up like this." Next time, the words sent a chill down my spine. What the hell were they talking about? Claire chuckled softly, the kind of laugh she used when she thought she'd gotten away with something. "I know, Celeste, I'll clean up before I leave, but I really appreciate you helping me with, well, you know." The weight in her words landed like a punch to my gut. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Helping her? My mom, Celeste, was helping Claire with something? My wife and my mother were conspiring, sharing secrets. The betrayal crept into my veins like poison. Then Claire said it, her voice dropping into a whisper that still carried enough weight to knock me off balance. If Brandon ever found out about the pregnancy and what I did, he'd never forgive me. The air left my lungs. Pregnancy? What she did. My hands trembled as I clung to the door frame for support. Celeste responded with a soothing tone, the same voice she used when she tried to calm me as a child. "Don't worry about Brandon," she said confidently. "He'll never know. I'll make sure of it. Just next time, Claire, be more careful." Next time. That phrase again, my stomach churned, nausea rising as the implications of their conversation washed over me. I couldn't take any more. Quietly, I stepped back, slipping away from the door before I could hear anything else. My boots crunched against the gravel, the sound louder in my ears than ever before as I hurried back to my car. By the time I shut the car door, my heart was racing. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles turning white. Fury, disbelief, heartbreak, they all swirled inside me. A storm I couldn't contain. I needed answers, but more than that I needed a plan. If I barged in now, demanding explanations, it would be over too quickly. They wouldn't understand the depth of my anger, the depth of my betrayal. No, this wasn't a moment for impulsive rage. They needed to feel the weight of what they'd done, piece by calculated piece. They needed to understand what it meant to be utterly destroyed. I drove away, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. The betrayal wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was a wound, raw, and festering, slicing deeper with each passing moment. My mother, the woman who had always been my rock, was now complicit in this deceit, and Claire, my wife, my partner, the person I had trusted most, had reduced our marriage to a farce. I didn't know where I was going. The streets blurred past me as I replayed the words I had overheard. Every sentence was a dagger twisting in my chest. Eventually, I pulled into an empty parking lot near a dimly lit park. My hands shook as I killed the engine, the silence of the night swallowing me whole. 8 years. That's how long Claire and I had been together. We'd met at a charity auction, a serendipitous encounter that had felt like fate. She was poised and confident, her laughter infectious. I had been captivated by her charm and warmth, believing I had found someone who could light up my darkest days. Within a year, we were married. My parents adored her, Celeste in particular, had taken to Claire instantly. They bonded over shared interests, cooking, interior design, and weekend shopping trips. At the time, I thought it was wonderful. My mother and my wife, so close they could finish each other's sentences. What more could I ask for? But now, that closeness felt like a knife in my back. I sat in the car, staring at the dashboard, my mind spiraling through memories. Claire and I had built a life together, or so I had thought. We had a beautiful home, friends who envied our relationship, and plans for a future that seemed unshakable. I had worked tirelessly to provide for her, often putting in long hours at the office to ensure she never had to worry about money. I bought her a new car last year for our anniversary, stretching our finances thin because I wanted her to feel loved and appreciated. And yet, she had done this. The betrayal wasn't just Claire's, though. My mother had actively helped her. The words they exchanged played on a loop in my head. He'll never know. Thank you for helping with the pregnancy termination. Next time, be more discreet. The sheer audacity of it made my stomach churn. They had plotted behind my back, hiding something so monumental it shattered the foundation of everything I believed in. My mother, the person who had raised me, who had taught me about loyalty and integrity, had betrayed me just as much as Claire had. By the time I returned home, I had made up my mind. This wasn't going to end with a confrontation. Not yet. They needed to feel this betrayal, to live with it in a way that cut as deeply as I was bleeding now. I would play the part of the unsuspecting husband and son, biding my time until the perfect moment to strike. The next morning, I acted as though nothing had changed. Claire greeted me with a warm smile as she set breakfast on the table. "Good morning, love," she said, her tone cheerful. Her eyes sparkled with the ease of someone who believed their secrets were safe. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile as I kissed her cheek. The contact made my skin crawl, but I kept my expression neutral. My mother called later that day, her voice as calm and caring as always. "Brandon, I was thinking we could plan a family dinner soon," she said. The sheer normalcy of her suggestion made me grip the phone tighter. "That sounds great, Mom," I said, my tone steady. "Let's figure out a date." For the next few weeks, I observed every interaction with Claire, and Celeste was an opportunity to gather information. I installed hidden cameras in the house, one in the kitchen, another in the living room, and one in our bedroom. I started checking Claire's phone when she left it unattended, screenshotting text conversations, and saving incriminating photos. It didn't take long to confirm my worst fears. Claire was still seeing someone else, a man named Damien. Tall, sharply dressed, and oozing smug confidence. He was everything I despised. I followed her one afternoon under the guise of running errands. She met him at a small cafe downtown, their body language unmistakable. They laughed, leaned in close, and exchanged touches that were far too intimate to be innocent. My stomach turned as I watched from my car, anger simmering beneath the surface. But the most damning evidence came a week later when I found a hidden folder on Claire's laptop. Inside were photos of her and Damien on dates in hotel rooms, even lounging in her living room on my couch while I was at work. And then there was a video. I couldn't stomach more than a few seconds of it, but what I saw was enough to solidify my resolve. I didn't sleep that night. The images from Claire's hidden folder played on a loop in my mind, mingling with the sound of her voice from that afternoon at my parents' house. The betrayal had mutated into something far darker, a gnawing rage that refused to be silenced. But this wasn't going to be an act of blind revenge. No, I was going to dismantle their world the way they had dismantled mine, with precision and patience. By the next morning, I had started laying the groundwork. The first step was to ensure my children Lily and Caleb were protected from the fallout. They didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of Claire and Celeste's lies. I arranged for a trusted friend, Noah, to take them on a weekend camping trip. Just some quality time with Uncle Noah. I explained to Claire over breakfast. She didn't question it. Why would she? To her, I was still the clueless husband, blissfully unaware of the chaos she and Damien had unleashed. Over the following days, I gathered every piece of evidence I could find. Photos, emails, receipts, everything that painted a vivid picture of Claire's deceit. I went through old credit card statements, tracing charges to hotels and restaurants I never heard of. Each discovery was another nail in the coffin of a life I thought we'd built together. I also turned my attention to Celeste. I scoured years' worth of family emails and text messages, searching for any sign of her involvement in Claire's schemes. What I found only deepened my disgust. Messages exchanged between them revealed not just complicity, but active encouragement. Celeste had coached Claire on how to cover her tracks, offering advice like, "Don't let Brandon find this," and use cash for anything that might raise suspicion. The realization that my mother had played such an active role in my betrayal was like a knife to the heart. She wasn't just a bystander. She was an accomplice. The time for passive observation ended the night I confronted Celeste. It was late, and my father had gone to bed. I sat across from her in the living room, the folder of evidence resting heavily on my lap. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but cold. She looked up from her knitting, her expression wary. "What's wrong, Brandon?" I dropped the folder onto the coffee table between us. The sound was loud in the quiet room, making her flinch. "Why don't you tell me?" I sat leaning back in my chair. Her hands trembled as she opened the folder. Photo after photo, message after message. Each piece of evidence was more damning than the last. By the time she reached the end, her face was ashen. "Brandon, I can explain," she began, but I cut her off. "Don't," I snapped, my voice sharp enough to make her recoil. "Don't insult me with excuses. You helped her. You lied to me. You hid the truth about my marriage, about my life." Tears filled her eyes, but I felt nothing. "I was trying to protect you," she said weakly. "Protect me?" I barked, standing so quickly the chair scraped against the floor. "You didn't protect me. You destroyed me. You sided with Claire and let her make a fool out of me." She sobbed, but I wasn't done. "You're my mother, Celeste. You were supposed to have my back to look out for me. Instead, you betrayed me. Do you even realize what you've done?" Her silence was answer enough. Claire was next. I waited until the kids were safely away, and Damien was out of town on one of his business trips. When Claire walked through the door that evening, she was greeted by silence. No kids, no noise. Just me sitting at the dining table with a folder identical to the one I had shown Celeste. "What's this?" she asked, her smile faltering. "Sit," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. She hesitated but obeyed. I slid the folder across the table, opened it. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages, her face growing paler with each passing moment. By the time she reached the end, she looked like she might faint. "Brandon, I can explain," she began, her voice trembling. "Don't bother," I said coldly. "I already know everything. Damien, the pregnancy, the lies. It's all here." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. "You ruined us, Claire. You and my mother. But I'm not going to let you destroy me or the kids." "What are you going to do?" she whispered. "I've already done it," I replied, throwing a stack of papers onto the table. "That's the divorce petition. I filed for full custody of Lily and Caleb. Your visitation rights will be limited, and if you try to fight me, I'll make sure every detail of this gets dragged into court." She sobbed, pleading with me to reconsider, but I was unmoved. "You made your choice, Claire. Now you get to live with it. By the time the dust settled, Claire had lost everything. Her reputation, her lover, her role in our family. It was all gone. Celeste feared no better. My father, devastated by her betrayal, filed for divorce and cut all ties with her. She moved in with her sister, a shadow of the woman I had once admired. As for me, I focused on rebuilding. Lily and Caleb became my anchor, their laughter and love reminding me of what truly mattered. The anger still simmered beneath the surface, but it no longer controlled me. I had taken back my life, and I wasn't about to let anyone destroy it again. The days following Claire's departure were quiet, too quiet. The house felt like an echo of itself, its walls still holding the memories of a life I thought was real. But I reminded myself of what mattered most, Lily and Caleb. They were my focus now, my purpose. Every decision I made was to ensure they grew up in a world built on truth, not deception. The first few weeks were difficult. Caleb asked for Claire constantly, his innocent voice pulling at my heartstrings. "Where's Mommy?" He'd ask, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. Lily, a bit older and more perceptive, stopped asking altogether. She knew, in the unspoken way children sometimes do, that something had changed. "She's not coming back, is she?" Lily asked one evening, her small voice breaking the silence as I tucked her in a bed. I sat beside her, my chest tightening. "Mommy loves you very much." I began choosing my words carefully. But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes mean we have to live in different places. "Did she hurt you?" Lily pressed her wide eyes searching mine. I hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, sweetie, but it's my job to protect you and Caleb. And that's what I'm going to do." She wrapped her small arms around my neck. Her whispered, "I love you, Daddy," grounding me in a way I hadn't felt in months. The months that followed were a blur of rebuilding. I threw myself into work, ensuring financial stability for my family. Weekends became sacred, reserved for adventures with Lily and Caleb. We went hiking, visited the zoo, and spent lazy afternoons painting in the backyard. Slowly, the laughter returned, filling the house with a warmth. I thought I had lost forever, but there was still unfinished business. Damien had largely disappeared from my radar, his life crumbling under the weight of his own arrogance. His wife, Sarah, had left him, taking everything in the divorce. Rumor had it he was living in a dingy apartment, jobless and isolated. As much as I despised him, I realized he no longer mattered. He was a relic of the destruction I had already overcome. Celeste, however, was another story. One rainy afternoon, months after everything had unfolded, I found myself standing on the porch of my aunt's house. Celeste had moved in with her sister after my father filed for divorce, and I hadn't seen her since. The thought of confronting her again made my stomach churn, but I needed closure. When she opened the door, her face lit with a mixture of surprise and unease. "Brandon," she said softly, "I didn't expect to see you." "I wasn't sure I'd ever want to," I replied bluntly, "but I think it's time we talked." She stepped aside, letting me in. The house smelled faintly of lavender, a scent I remembered from my childhood. We sat in the living room, the tension thick between us. "Why?" I asked finally, breaking the silence. "Why did you help her? Why did you betray me?" Celeste sighed, her shoulders slumping under the weight of her guilt. "I thought I was protecting you," she said, her voice trembling. "Claire was scared, Brandon. She didn't know what to do, and I didn't want you to be hurt. Protecting you. Even realize what you've done." Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "I made a mistake, a terrible, terrible mistake. I just didn't know how to fix it." I stood, unable to sit any longer. "You didn't just betray me, Mom. You betrayed our family. You chose her over me, over Dad. And for what? To protect a lie." She sobbed, but I felt no pity. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll find it in your heart to forgive me." I stared at her, searching for something, remorse, sincerity, anything that might soften the anger still burning inside me. But all I saw was the shell of the mother I once knew. "I don't know if I can," I said quietly. "Not now, maybe not ever." Her with the consequences of her choices. Time passed, and the wounds began to heal, though the scars remained. Lily and Caleb thrived in the new life we built together. They left her a constant reminder of what I was fighting for. I found peace in small moments. The sound of Caleb's giggles, the sight of Lily's bright smile, the warmth of their hugs at the end of a long day. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Lily handed me a drawing she'd made. It was a picture of her little family, me, her, Caleb, and our dog, Rocky. In the corner, she'd written in shaky letters, "Thank you, Daddy." Tears filled my eyes as I pulled her into a hug. In that moment, I realized that while the past would always linger, it no longer defined me. My life was my own again, and I was determined to make it something worth living. Second story, I'm a 19-year-old male, and I'm really struggling with life right now. My stepfather, who has been in my life since the day I was born, is an alcoholic. Recently, my mom told me she doesn't want to be in a relationship with him anymore. A couple of years ago, my mom had an affair. She claimed it was because they were broken up, but they were still living together at the time. I didn't know what was really going on between them. I just knew they fought every day, and my stepdad was drinking heavily. He eventually found out about the affair because she would leave the house late at night around 12 a.m. and he caught on. His drinking probably got worse because of what she was doing to him. Since then, I haven't been able to see my mom the same way. No matter what, I feel like I'll always feel bad for my stepdad, even though he's far from perfect. After my stepdad forgave her, their relationship improved for a while, but the trust was never fully rebuilt. Fast forward to a couple of months ago, I found out my mom was texting the same guy she cheated with. At first, I tried to keep it to myself, but it started eating away at me. I couldn't sleep, and it consumed my thoughts 24/7. Eventually, I told my stepdad. He wasn't surprised, and when we got home, he wanted me to confront her about it. I hated doing it, but I told her what I'd seen. Her response: she said she wanted to feel loved by someone. I was so upset that I had to leave. Now, I've noticed her texting one of her male friends. She's close to him, and once admitted she used to have a crush on him. He's newly single, and it's hard not to connect the dots. I've lost all trust in her, but I didn't confront her this time because I didn't want to make things harder for myself or my younger sisters. But it's gotten worse. She's always on her phone, texting and laughing, and it's driving me crazy. I don't know if she's actually meeting up with this guy, but I'm scared to tell anyone because I know how much damage it could cost my family. My relationship with my mom has completely changed. I don't talk to her unless I have to, and when I do, I try to keep it short and go to my room. She's noticed and keeps asking me what's wrong, but I just brush her off. As for my stepdad, I don't like talking to him either. He's usually drunk by 1 p.m., and every time I try to have a conversation with him, it just frustrates me. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel stuck, and the situation is overwhelming me. I need help. Please,